everyone, and welcome to Culturecast. In this episode, we'll be discussing Ivan's Childhood by Andrei Tarkovsky. I'm Jimmy Atkinson.
I'm Sam Chodkowski.
I'm Maggie Lucas.
I'm Jing Liu.
And I'm Spencer.
Let's get right into it.
And we
Hello,
watched Ivan's Childhood, or Ivan's.
Directed by Andrei Tarkovsky.
And I think right off the bat, the film is in black and white and focuses mainly on this little boy.
It's set during World War II, and it follows a 12-year-old boy who's an orphan after his family is killed by Nazis.
Yeah, and Ivan is utilized by the Russian officers as kind of a reconnaissance or like a spy. And right off the bat, I remember one of the first things we hear about Ivan is that, like, how did he get here is the question that one of the soldiers asks. And he said, I swam across the river. And then it's established that, like, many Russian soldiers have died trying to cross that exact river. And that Ivan's, perseverance and ability to, like, make it there is ridiculous in of itself. So I thought that was an awesome introduction to the character.
Yeah, and I also noticed that when he was introduced and when he was talking to certain lieutenants, the camera work, he would be right at the forefront of the shot, really kind of like asserting his dominance and, I don't know, kind of laying down the law where this little boy, he shouldn't be taken seriously, or in war, there's no place for a little boy, but he comes in kind of hard-hitting and convincing.
I think a lot of Ivan's posturing of I'm an adult, he's acting like a high-ranking officer, as if it's his place to be in the war and he's a valuable asset for the Russian army by making himself this person that, in the beginning of the movie, provides crucial information that ends up basically like winning a pretty important fight. I feel like it's Ivan wanting to be an adult and wanting to have a place in the war, despite the fact that he's a kid. And even though he said he isn't scared and he says he knows what he's doing, he's still like 12. He's really terrified, but if you ask a 12-year-old if they're scared, they're not going to say that they're scared.
Yeah, and I think war is all he's ever really known, so for him to kind of... There's one line somebody else says where it's, what kind of people rest during the war? Useless people. And like, I think Ivan was kind of raised with that mentality because he was raised by commanding officers, raised by soldiers, and talk about who's going to adopt him after the war, and it's some high-ranking general or something. I think when war is all he ever knows, he doesn't want to take a back seat by going to military academy. He wants to be right there and fighting with the only family that he has, which is the army.
Right, and I think, going off of that, I think it's important to point out how from the beginning, we actually are in this kind of dream state or just like alternate reality where he's with his mom and he's not this kind of hardo war fighting. He's looking down on what's going on, and I don't know, just making sense of it. And then once we fall into kind of like the war scenes and we're seeing that, he doesn't have his mom with him.
I think you get a lot of that in the dream sequences, especially at the end. I mean, we're jumping ahead a while, but like with the very end, it's kind of him playing on the beach with kids of his own age, like running around carefree, not in a war environment. I took all the dream sequences as kind of like the childhood that he never got to have, or the childhood that he was striving for, but like doesn't want to admit that he wants, because his entire identity and life is built around this idea that he's a valuable war asset.
Yeah, and with his childhood and dreams, there's a shot with him, and I believe it's his mother, and they're like looking down a wishing well, and it's kind of like him wishing like he did have like this sweet childhood. And then I think the scene, it ends by him falling down and hitting the bottom of it, and it's kind of how his childhood like abruptly ended because of the war.
Yeah, I think I actually wrote down the quote, and the mother said, "Daytime for you and me, but nighttime for the star." And I think she was implying star being him down there in the war. And it's just interesting to use kind of daytime and nighttime in that quote, because you could also say like the light and the
Yeah.
and the darkness is the war, and the light are these dream states or reality or alternate realities that
Yeah.
he's in.
Every shot is so dark and so, I mean, it's black and white, of course, like the whole movie, but every kind of wartime shot is so dark and it's confined. It's like very close quarter shots and stuff sometimes, like most of the time. And I feel like in those dream sequences, it's wide, sprawling beaches and open air and light all over the place, and just kind of happiness.
I feel like one thing this movie is that like the boundaries between like the dream and the reality is like blurred, even though there are like some scenes that are like clearly his dreams, but like I feel like there are like dream elements like showing like all different places. Like do you remember the scene where like he sees like all the words on the walls?
Yeah, he's down in that cellar.
Yeah.
And he throws the knife at the lamp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The words on the wall are a really interesting part of how his dreams and his memories are kind of bleeding in to like the present, um, and how his trauma is kind of making him go kind of crazy with these hallucinations he's having, where people are talking in the background and he is sitting there and all he can see on the wall is a hallucination of that carving. There are 8 of us, none of us over 18. We are all about to get taken outside and shot. Avenge us. And the avenge us is like held there. Kind of this message that to him is the only like order that he's pretty much going to follow from anyone.
It's because he firmly believes he has that responsibility, or that it's all he knows, and it's what he's good at. And you hear him say to his commanding officers, like, "Oh, well, we lost so and so because he's big. Like they got caught because they couldn't fit through small spaces. I'm a kid, I can fit through anywhere. I'm a valuable asset."
Yeah, I think also going off of the words on the wall, there's this one scene with him where, also talking about the dream states and it bleeding in, is that there's like diegetic sounds of past war and visions of what could be his dead family, and it keeps going back to the avenge us, and that might be part of the reason why he is so kind of like hands-on and nonstop. I want to win, I want to do this for them.
In terms of the cinematography, and I don't want to just jump from another topic, but this is something that I thought was weird throughout the whole film. But it takes place on the Eastern Front of World War II, and it's huge battles were fought there and for Russia, and Russia lost so many men. But throughout the whole film, I can't think of, other than the very end when they're celebrating the end of the war, I can't think of any shots that had more than 3 or 4 people in them. Or other than the troop transport trucks and stuff. But I think the whole story kind of revolves around these 3 or 4 characters, like the medical assistant, Masha, I think her name was, and then the one soldier who kisses her in the forest. That was weird. And then the other 2, like the other soldiers, and then of course Ivan. But I think almost every scene centered around one of those 4 characters, and even like when in the trenches during a battle, you only see like 3 characters. You don't have people running around everywhere.
That's a very good point. And I think also bouncing off of that, 2 of these main characters are 1 a child and 2 a woman. And all throughout the movie they talk about how war is for men and not for children or not for women. But 2 of those main characters are both of those, so I think that's definitely interesting to talk about or find.
Yeah, so Masha is a character that never even sees Ivan at all. They never interact. She's kind of a secondary main character in a sense, but for some reason we're getting scenes with her, and she's a medic, working.
Yeah, she comes along like halfway through, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's a medic, and she's working during the war, and I'm pretty sure like the first scene we get with her, they were discussing sending her to work at a hospital instead of being out on the field. So it's the same idea of sending Ivan to the military school where we're going to take these people who we think aren't suited for war because they're a child or they're a woman, and they're going to be sent to these places where they can be safe and still uh, do something good.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting. Masha as a character is portrayed as this medical assistant, but in my recollection of the films, I don't think we actually get any scenes of her performing, medical things. I think that a lot of her scenes kind of revolved around the soldiers' responses to her and like the sexual moves that they make on her. A lot of her role in the story was kind of her object of sexual desire among these battle torn soldiers or whatever.
Yeah, and I find that really interesting because it takes away, like, from what she is as a woman. She's in the war working, which many women didn't do, but the movie depicts her as just like this sexual object for the men to swoon at.
Yes, exactly.
And then Masha goes into the forest, and a soldier follows her, and that is where we get the kissing scene.
Yeah, I actually have the exact time of that like kind of classic shot of her being kissed. So
Which was fantastic, by the way. Like that's an awesome shot.
The lieutenant picks her up, and her legs are dangling, and they're standing over what seems to be a bunker. And he's insisting that he helps her cross over, but she the whole time has been saying she doesn't need help. Blah blah blah. He wraps her up and then kisses her while her feet are dangling, and I think that shot is really important because it just shows that like she could do it herself, but these men are seeing her as an object, and he's just holding her while she's kind of like against her own will,
Yeah,
just dangling.
you got
him.
you got the symbolism of the trench like right below them, like
Right.
where the battles are fought, the front lines of the war essentially.
Like
You
they'll
have-
save her.
Yeah, and here you have this lieutenant holding her up, keeping her from falling into the mud and the dirt, and kissing her, but it's all against her will.
I think when the cameras portrayed her point of view, it was very disorienting and just kind of shaky, and it was her trying to get out of the woods or not a steady shot.
There were a lot of point of view shots that were specifically from her point of view. You don't get, off the top of my head, I don't think you get Ivan point of view shots or any of point of view shots from the lieutenants. I think the only time the camera really becomes the eyes of one of the characters is Masha in that like beautiful birch forest thing where it's just tall birch trees for miles or whatever.
Right.
So what's weird with Masha is her connection with the music box, which is
yeah.
a pretty interesting thing. This guy has a music box he's been carrying around for a while, and when we finally get to opening it up and playing it, it's singing this like I suppose it's a love song. I'm not sure exactly, but in the lyrics you hear the dude that's singing say the name Masha multiple times, which is very strange to have the music box like singing an ode to her name, a character in the movie, and I'm not sure if that is supposed to be part of the other character's obsession over her.
Yeah, if you had made the music that's playing off the music box, or if it's a song that happens to have her name in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and the music box itself is basically just the soldier trying to hold on to the last thing he has left of like
civilization.
Yeah, and part of that is also this weird infatuation with the Masha character.
Yeah, and I think I said this another time, but near the end of the film, when they finally get the news that they were victorious, she came in after a while, after us not seeing her for another little bit, and she said goodbye. And as soon as her character left the film and made her exit, that's when the war was over. And I think that's kind of a funny coincidence, if it is, or if not. Just that when she was done and ready to leave, that's when kind of the war wrapped up and the movie started to head towards the conclusion, you know?
Yeah, she basically makes her first choice in the whole film. I think her and Ivan are similar characters in that they don't have a choice in anything that's happening to them, but they try to find that power, in what they can, and they handle it in different ways. Ivan running away and her kind of just also running away.
Yeah, I think my favorite part of that scene is where the creepy dude that basically assaulted her earlier is going to show her something, and then while his back is turned, she just walks out.
Yeah, she's out of there.
Yeah, she's just not having it. It's just like, hey, you gave her some agency. That's good. So this movie's ending is pretty abrupt. We get Masha walking out and leaving the dude to
Drops Mike.
yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Mike drop.
and then we get like a smash cut to people celebrating that the war's over and everything's all of a sudden done. We get a really weird part where we go over like all of these people who, instead of becoming prisoners of war, have decided to end their own lives and the lives of their own families. All these Germans, Goebbels.
Yeah.
We get Goebbels' family like
Yeah.
laid out, which is really weird. I feel like it's kind of a very small, contained story, and now we're getting all of these other stuff that's happening, and then all of these people are now like pouring through thousands of like files and documents like spread all over this floor, and they're like searching through all of them, and whether they're hanged or shot, and it's just like they're all indistinguishable from each other. And then the young soldier like sees one fall down to the ground, and he runs up to pick it up, and he sees Ivan's face, and you see his reaction shot, and he's completely destroyed. He has like so many more scars on his face. You see how much he's lost already through the war, and now he sees that this person that he's only known for probably like a month is just gone, and he never got to really say goodbye or anything. And then he looks up, and there's like this shot with a prison's costume on barbed wire, and him looking up at the barbed wire, and you can hear a voiceover of these German prison guards taunting him and telling him to get out of the cell, and they're going to basically kill him, and that's where he leaves his character. It's very it's a very kind of gruesome scene.
Yeah, I think it was interesting that we went from the whole film is set in basically one like square mile. It feels like where they never really leave that lake area.
Yeah.
With the two hanged.
One little nook.
Yeah, with the two hanged soldiers in the welcome sign, we see that a lot of times. So to kind of put you that the film doesn't really leave this spot until the very end, and then we're in like Berlin. And there's swastikas all over the place, and there's we don't even see German soldiers or the enemy the entire film. Like we hear gunshots, bullets whiz past, but you never get close quarters combat like you'd see in Saving Private Ryan or something. It's more of the war is there, but you don't really see it kind of thing.
Yeah, you only kind of really hear the war.
Yeah.
You never see anyone get shot or anyone physically die. I don't believe, right?
I don't even think you don't even see a Nazi soldier. You hear Nazi soldiers in that voiceover that Spencer was talking about. But like you really only see like swastikas and garbage thrown all across Berlin's inner whatever that building was. It was an important government building. It looked like in Berlin, and it's just kind of ravaged and destroyed.
So as much as this is a war movie, I feel like you now bringing that up makes me think that it's more about the people of the war.
Yeah, it's more about what war does to people or what being
and how it affects.
Yeah,